This is a good year for writers with iPhones. I wanted to show you a kind of top 5 new features in iOS 16 that are particularly good for you and me in writing, and I've kind of failed. I mean, well, 6 is kind of 5, isn't it? Rounding? Yeah. Take a look at these. Most of them are quick, not all, but there's also been this. I've been using most of what you're going to see in beta test versions for at least a few weeks, sometimes a couple of months, and already they're so right, they're so normal. I actually forgot that they were new in iOS 16. I was just constantly surprised looking into seeing the list. Oh yeah, that's it. Yep, you'll love this stuff. Hello, I'm William Gallagher and this is 58 Keys, which as ever, as always, it's for writers like you and me who use and do obviously write on Macs and iPhones and iPads, all of them together at the same time. Do subscribe because there's always so much to talk about. One thing actually I think in general doesn't get talked about much, so at least as far as I've noticed, is actually exactly what iOS 16 or any other iOS, any OS is. Because if you know, it's really obvious, but if you don't, where do you find out these things? Macs, iPhones, iPads, PCs, Androids, whatever. They're all hardware, you can kick them, and they all have operating systems that you sometimes want to kick, the OS. It's what makes that machinery, that hardware, do anything. It's what makes it do everything, really. Playing a game, well, the game is an app, but it needs the OS. Typing a key on the keyboard and the letter appearing on the screen, that's through the OS. The OS is everywhere and it is crucial, which even if you know, is important to remember right now, whenever actually that there is a new one, in every case. Even if it ever seemed like that there wasn't anything new, anything visibly new in it, well, there is. The OS touches everything, all of them do. So a small problem in them becomes a big deal, which is why, as tempting as it always is, you should never update your iPhone to the new iOS until at least a few days after it's out. Let a billion other iPhone users find the problems and then let Apple fix them before it holds you up in your writing. But now, the top 6 new or improved features for you and me as writers. First, a revamped feature that is definitely big is definitely the single most visible difference you'll see once you've gone to iOS 16. Very visual, but it does sound a bit trivial because it is. But that trivial bit, well, it's fun. Why shouldn't we have fun? And the more you get into it, the more serious, the more genuinely useful it becomes. So bear with me for a second for the trivial fun bit. It's just the lock screen, right? You can now customize the screen that you see when you pick up your iPhone. I think actually you always could do something, couldn't you? I mean, you could change the wallpaper behind it or something, but now Apple lets you do a lot more. It lets you change the fonts, the colors of the fonts. It lets you put a photograph of someone on your screen, and I think this is brilliantly well done. It will put the time kind of behind them. It's so clever, isn't it? But again, it's the lock screen. You pick it up, you shrug. Yeah. Although, for at least a decade now, I've had this as my lock screen image and wallpaper. It's actually a close-up photograph I took once at a glass factory, and I love that shot. It's on my Mac as well a lot of the time. But since moving to the beta of iOS 16, I've kind of left it behind in favor of this. The lock screen image there changes by itself to reflect the weather where I am. Could just look out of the window. But if it's not strictly speaking useful because I'm next to a window or I'm outside, it's remarkably and deeply appealing. And this bit is useful. Widgets on the lock screen. Pick up your phone and see, in this case, for example, the time in another country that you need. Get depressed, your exercise rings, all sorts of stuff that you can add as little widgets there. Apple apps, now they all come with widgets that you can put there on the lock screen, and increasingly other companies' apps are going to do it as well. My to-do app of choice, OmniFocus, well, it was right out of the gate with several for it. So I can get depressed over the exercise rings and how far behind I'm on what I've got to do. And the thing is, these widgets, they are useful enough, that you're going to soon wish you could fit more on the screen, because for now at least it's one row and it takes I think it's 3 or 4 widgets, kind of depending on their size. For example, there's a double width weather widget, for example. And then finally, in this bit anyway, there's this about the new lock screen. It's a combination, I think, of good but trivial and then very useful for us. I told you I used to love this blue glass wallpaper of mine. Well, if I want, I can pick up the iPhone, press and hold for a moment, and then swipe. I can swipe right back to it. I can swipe, I don't know if there's a limit here. Is it any number of different wallpapers you could set up? And are you ever going to? I mean, perhaps it could be something to suit your mood. It could be fiddling for the sake of fiddling and putting off writing, but it does also let you have different sets of widgets, so swipe from whatever you need in the day. And when you do swipe to a different lock screen, you can choose to have your iPhone automatically turn on a focus mode, and then when you move away to another wallpaper, turn it off. Focus modes could actually be a 7th thing to talk about, because there is so much, and actually it's considerably improved in iOS 16 over last year when it was introduced. But briefly, you can set yourself up a writing focus mode, right? And then you turn that on, and for instance, it could block all emails, all phone calls, all messages, all notifications, everything except if they're from your partner, your producer, your publisher, your editor, anybody you choose like that. So normally, to turn on and off focus mode on an iPhone, you would swipe down for Control Center, tap that focus button, find the one you want, tap that, and when you were done, swipe, find, tap, ding, and get it switched off again. Now you can just swipe to a different lock screen. This example here, I chose this New York photograph completely randomly when I was first trying this out, and yet somehow over the weeks, to me, that photograph equals writing. It means I'm in a writing mode. I swipe to that, my head goes into writing focus mode, and so does my iPhone, my iPad, my Mac, even my Apple Watch. They all shut up and let me get on with it. And then when I'm done and I can face the rest of the world again, swipe back to my weather lock screen, and I'm done. Actually, this could be an 8th thing, the more I think about it, really, because while I've been off in writing mode and notifications have come in, if I've received notifications and messages and emails and calls, well, they'll all be shown now that I've come out of this writing focus mode and I'm ready, but they'll be shown now in the bottom of the screen, and it's just handier displayed. Rather than a screen full of these things, you can choose to look through them. Let's talk about writing, though, about what you and I actually do when we turn up the keys, what we're here to do. I know you and I are different writers, but I guarantee we both have to write a lot of emails, pitching to places, delivering things, sending invoices. That's a nice one, and quite an easy one, really. I mean, not a lot of text, could be a lot of work. Anyway, lots of emails. And I know you've done this. You have sent an email and then realized that instant that you've made some mistake in it. Now on your iPhone, you write the email, you tap the send button, that little arrow in the blue icon, and you have just enough time to slap your forehead and choose undo send. For a few seconds after you've hit send, that undo send option appears at the bottom of the screen. Most of the time, right, well, you don't need it. You'll ignore it and that's fine. Message just goes. But sometimes you will race to tap that undo send button and you will breathe out in relief. And just to be picky and clear, you're not really undoing the send. The email hasn't sent and this isn't your iPhone somehow reaching and pulling it back across the ether, the internet, the cloud, or whatever. All that Apple Mail is doing is, like Gmail does it before, it's holding on to the message for a few seconds before it sends it out. Just a few seconds so you don't notice, but the effect is the same. You have the chance to fix a problem if you spot one in time. Separately, by the way, also in Mail, there is also now a send later option for more than a few seconds. Instead of just tapping that send button now and it going in a few seconds, tap the blue arrow, press and hold on it, and you see options. Apple gives you these 3 options for sending this current message tonight, tomorrow, or actually, no, I'm fine. Just get on with it, send it right now as normal. And then this. send later. Choose that, and you can say you want this email to go out 2 days from now at 0907, anytime, any day you like. I took on a new role recently where the first job that I was going to have to do, it will involve sending about 80 emails. So to help and fair issues, I was given access to the email account early. So I could read all the inbound emails and think about it, but it wasn't until I was actually in post, officially announced as doing this project, contributing to this work, I couldn't reply. Rather than read the 80 then and think about them a lot and then reread them when I was official, I read them and I wrote replies to all of them. But I told my Mac to send out all of those replies on the day and at the time that I knew I was going to be announced in post. It was such a good idea. Kind of a shame it didn't work. But that was actually very early on in the beta process for the new Mac OS Ventura in that case. And since then I've used it on the Mac, on the iPhone, and it's worked perfectly. That was a lot about mail. A quick one. Okay. Previously on iOS 16, you could dictate into mail, say into page, into anything. You'd tap on the microphone button, you talk away for a bit, and then tap the button again and go fix all of the mistakes in the dictation. But not anymore. Well, yes, anymore. Actually, all of that still works. But it used to be that once you tapped that microphone button, that was it. All you could actually do is talk, is dictate. Now, you can be dictating away, and the keyboard stays on the screen. So you can be typing fixes to mistakes in the last sentence while you're dictating the next. It's easier to do than that sounds. I could get used to being brief and succinct and I'll have one more go though, okay? Look at this, please. It's a photograph of me on my website. And if I press and hold on it on my iPhone, I get this copy subject option. Tap that. Now go to mail or messages or anywhere really that you like. Choose paste. And now that photograph of me is there, pasted, but only me. None of the nice background that was taken away. None of it. It's automatic background removal. It detects the subject, removes everything else. And previously you had to use Photoshop or Pixelmator Pro to do that, and it was fiddly. It took time, and you can still use that. So there are still reasons to use it, and you can still spend a lot of time getting it just so. But Apple has added this instant background removal, and it is astonishingly good for it. Except for one thing-ish. I said you could paste the image you get anywhere, and it's true, but true with an asterisk. It's best when you paste into messages. It's really built for that. Second best is when you paste into email, and then everything else is third and not so great, because what gets produced out of this is actually quite a small image. It's not a very high resolution one, so it's good for a quick thing. A message is just sending a thing out, but you wouldn't send it to your book publisher and say, go on then, this is the photograph for the back jacket. Okay? It is better, there's higher resolution version in photos on the Mac and on the iPad if you do want to do that. Previously on 58, I keep doing that. About a year ago, actually, let's be specific, I enthused about quick notes. The thing where you get a stray thought in your work on something and you could just reach for the bottom corner of the screen, drag up a quick note, jot down whatever it was, and then push the note away, get on with what you were doing. Quick notes, it was and it is excellent, most especially on the iPad, actually. And last year, Quick Notes, it was on the iPad, on the Mac, but it wasn't on the iPhone at all. And what I said about it was that Quick Notes was so good that you will wish it was on the iPhone, and now it is. Quick Notes are right here at last on the iPhone. Well, you say that. It's not the same. You can't just swipe up from the corner right and push the note away. Instead, well, first you have to set this up at all. You have to set up in Control Center, which means going to Settings, Control Center, finding notes in that bottom list, the one headed More Controls, tapping the plus sign, and then if you like, rearranging it in the list. But then from then onwards, every time you want to make a quick note on the iPhone, you swipe down to get Control Center, you tap the Quick Notes button, and away off you go. And here it is. Here's number 6 in the thing that I could just not leave out because I so wanted a top 5. It's a thing called, wait for this, oh, such a name, continuity camera. Yay! You're excited now, but you forget the name. This works in conjunction. It's iPhone and Mac together. Pop your iPhone up onto some kind of mount and you can use its superb cameras instead of the Mac's okay ones, if your Mac even has a camera. So Zoom calls, FaceTime, they're all now going to show you through the iPhone camera looking gorgeous in high definition. And true, this just staggers me. This is a sit back moment. I haven't actually used it myself yet because I haven't got a proper mount for it. But let's say you and I were on a Zoom call and we're talking away face to face, but I wanted to show you something I was doing on the desk, basket weaving. Right here on my desk, I have this presumably wonderful basket. And as I look straight at you through the iPhone that's pointing at my face, the same iPhone in the same call, using the same camera lenses, can simultaneously show you an overhead view of my desk and the basket at the same time. No separate camera, no separate setup, no separate iPhone pointing down. I mean, the physics of this, the optics of these camera systems and lenses and the algorithms, it's astounding to me. Utterly gorgeous piece of work. Calligraphy, I should have said calligraphy. Where did I get basket weaving from? Anyway, continuity camera, the wow part of iOS 16, I think. There is more. Actually, there's much more. Much more. I don't think any of the rest of it, though, is so directly useful to us as writers. But, I mean, we're not just writers. It's not like we can't enjoy the rest. So, very briefly, this is what else I find I've been using over the last few weeks, at least sometimes, and very useful when I did. So, once I did finding and removing duplicate photos. Saved so much room on my iPhone. Similarly, finding and removing duplicate contacts in my address book. I don't know how that happens. You end up with the same people. Yeah, saved a lot of confusion. Multiple stops in Apple Maps. I'm going here, but I need to first go here, there, and everywhere. Okay? This should surely this should always have been part of Apple Maps, but presumably it's harder to do than we think because it's only just come to Apple Maps with iOS 16, and I'm not actually certain if it's in Google Maps yet either. Only recently if it is. Anyway, you can see the use of that. It's obvious use in Apple Maps. Apple Maps has also made it easy to add these stops and then to drag to rearrange them. It's very smooth. It does mean actually that there are differences in Apple Maps compared to how you used to set your final destination in Apple Maps, and enough so that it's going to take your fingers time to get used to the new way. And it's like I said when we started talking, I've been using this for a little while now, and I cannot tell you how we used to do it. This is just right. It's the thing that should be. And Apple Maps done the way maps should be working. And actually, I think that's a fair summary of the whole of iOS 16 too. Look, I think you've seen at least one or two things. I mean, you understood them all, but you know a couple of them will be useful to you. Upgrade to iOS 16, even if you didn't find anything useful there, because later release is always the most secure, always the best for it. And actually, it's when you then use these things in real life, if you like, rather than just reading about them or hearing about them, you find the use, you rely on them. If your iPhone can take iOS 16, well, it will eventually, over the next few weeks, tell you and prompt you to update, but you can speed it up, go to settings, general, and then choose software updates to get it now, really. Listen, that's it for this edition, 58 Keys. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourself, write some more, and I'll see you soon.